5 years had passed since humanity had disappeared into the darkness between galaxies, and the Milky Way was dying. What had once been the greatest civilization the universe had ever known was now a collection of struggling worlds, each trying desperately to maintain technologies they did not understand. Trade routes had collapsed, communication networks were failing, and several wars had broken out as desperate alien species fought over the few remaining human installations that still functioned. Former Federation. President Nextal walked through the empty streets of Geneva on Earth, past buildings that had once housed the greatest government in galactic history. Weeds grew through cracks in the pavement, and most of the windows in the tall buildings were dark because the power systems had failed months ago. The few thousand Federation colonists who had moved to Earth after the human exodus were barely surviving in a world they could not maintain. The irony was bitter and obvious. Earth was still the most beautiful planet in Federation space, with perfect climate and abundant natural resources. But without humans to maintain the infrastructure, it was becoming uninhabitable for the alien colonists who had thought they were claiming a prize. The automatic systems that controlled weather, managed water distribution, and maintained the atmosphere were breaking down one by one. Nextal remembered the day 5 years ago when he had stood in this same city and celebrated humanity's departure. He had given a speech about how the Federation would finally be free to achieve its full potential without being held back by primitive human thinking. Now he understood that human thinking had not been holding the Federation back. It had been the only thing keeping the Federation from falling apart. Meanwhile, in the Andromeda Galaxy, Admiral Lisa Torres stood on the observation deck of humanity's new capital ship, the USV New Horizon. Around her stretched a sight that would have amazed anyone from the old galaxy, a massive ring-shaped structure surrounding a yellow star, with millions of ships moving between thousands of space stations. Humanity had not just survived their exodus, they had built something magnificent. The Stellar Ring, as humans called their greatest construction project, was larger than most solar systems. It contained manufacturing facilities that could produce anything humans needed, research laboratories that were advancing science at an incredible pace, and living areas that housed nearly 3 billion people in comfort and luxury. The entire structure was powered by the star at its center, using energy collection methods that were far more efficient than anything the Federation had ever developed. Dr. Kevin Blake, now the director of the Human Colonial Development Authority, reviewed the latest reports from their expanding territory. Humanity had established colonies on over 300 worlds and was adding new settlements every month. Each colony was completely self-sufficient and connected to the others through communication networks that made the old Federation systems look primitive. The key to human success in their new galaxy was freedom. For the first time in centuries, humans could develop technology without having to make it compatible with inferior alien systems. They could pursue scientific research without having to explain their methods to alien bureaucrats who did not understand human thinking. They could build whatever they wanted without having to get permission from alien officials who were afraid of human innovation. The results had been spectacular. Human technology had advanced more in 5 years of freedom than it had in 50 years under Federation rule. They had developed faster than light travel methods that made trips between galaxies as easy as traveling between planets. They had created manufacturing techniques that could build entire cities in a matter of weeks. They had discovered medical treatments that extended human lifespan indefinitely. But the most important advancement was not any particular technology. It was the way humans organized their society. In the Federation, innovation had been slowed by bureaucracy and prejudice. New ideas had to be approved by committees of alien officials who often rejected human proposals simply because they came from humans. Research had been limited by regulations designed to prevent humans from developing technologies that might threaten alien superiority. In their new galaxy, humans had created a society where innovation was encouraged and rewarded. Anyone with a good idea could get support to develop it. Research was limited only by safety considerations, not by political fears. The result was an explosion of creativity that had transformed human civilization in just a few years. Captain Jake Martinez, now an old man commanding a massive exploration fleet, was leading the expansion into the furthest reaches of human space. His ships were discovering new worlds every day, and each one offered opportunities for human settlement. The galaxy that humanity had claimed was enormous, with billions of stars and countless planets that could support human life. But what made the exploration program truly exciting was that humans were not just finding new worlds to colonize. They were finding evidence of ancient civilizations that had existed millions of years ago and had left behind artifacts that contained scientific knowledge far beyond anything humans or aliens had ever developed. These archaeological discoveries were accelerating human technological advancement even further. The archaeological sites suggested that the galaxy had once been home to a civilization that had solved problems humans were just beginning to understand. They had developed technologies for controlling gravity, manipulating time, and traveling instantly between distant locations. Most importantly, they had created self-repairing systems that could maintain themselves for millions of years without any outside intervention. Human scientists were studying these ancient technologies and learning to incorporate them into modern human systems. The combination of human innovation and ancient knowledge was creating possibilities that no one had ever imagined. Some researchers believed that within a few decades, humans would be able to build civilizations that could survive for millions of years and expand across the entire universe. Back in the Milky Way, the Federation was making desperate attempts to contact humanity and beg for their return. The message had been sent using the most powerful communication array the Federation possessed, and it had taken 3 years to reach human space. The message was simple and humbling, a single word that represented the complete surrender of alien pride. Please. The Federation had finally admitted that they needed humanity more than humanity needed them. They offered to make humans equal partners in galactic government. They promised to give humans credit for their technological contributions. They even offered to pay massive reparations for centuries of discrimination and exploitation. But the human response had been equally simple and far more devastating. No, thank you. We are busy building the future. The rejection was not motivated by anger or revenge. Humans had simply moved beyond the Federation. They had found something better than trying to fix a broken system. They had built a new system that worked perfectly for their needs and their values. Commander Sarah Phillips, who had been the last human to leave Earth, was now leading the colonization of an entire star cluster. Her fleets were establishing human settlements on thousands of worlds simultaneously, using construction techniques that could transform barren planets into garden worlds in a matter of months. Each new colony was more advanced than anything that existed in the Milky Way. The speed of human expansion was possible because of innovations in automated construction and terraforming. Human engineers had developed self-replicating machines that could build entire cities without human supervision. They had created atmospheric processors that could give any planet a breathable atmosphere in just a few years. They had designed biological systems that could transform dead worlds into living ecosystems. These technologies would have been impossible to develop under Federation rule because alien governments were afraid of giving humans access to self-replicating technology. They had worried that humans might use such technology to build military forces that could threaten alien worlds. Their fears had prevented not just humans but the entire galaxy from benefiting from these advances. Now humans were using these technologies to build a civilization that was peaceful, prosperous, and completely beyond the reach of alien interference. They had no interest in conquering other galaxies or imposing their will on alien species. They were content to build their own perfect society and explore the wonders of an entire galaxy that belonged to them alone. The contrast between human success and Federation failure was becoming more obvious every year. Reports from the Milky Way described a galaxy in permanent decline, where alien civilizations were slowly losing the technologies that had made them great. Reports from human space described unprecedented expansion and advancement, where new wonders were being discovered and created every day. Dr. Neela Chen, the last human in Federation space, finally received permission to leave and join her people in their new home. As her ship prepared to depart from Federation space for the last time, she looked back at the galaxy that had rejected humanity and felt only pity for the aliens who were too proud to admit their mistakes. The Federation had possessed the greatest treasure in the universe, a species whose members could solve any problem, fix any system, and Dr. Neela Chen walked slowly to the speaker's platform in the Federation Emergency Assembly Hall. Every representative from every member world was staring at her with a mixture of desperation and anger. She was the only human left in Federation space, and they all wanted her to solve the crisis that was destroying galactic civilization. Her answer was going to disappoint them. Neela looked out at the hundreds of alien faces watching her and felt the weight of representing her entire species. She had stayed behind when the human exodus began, because she believed that cooperation between humans and aliens was still possible. She had thought that the Federation would realize its mistakes and invite humanity back as equal partners. Instead, she had watched the galaxy tear itself apart, while alien leaders refused to admit they had been wrong about human capabilities. The first question came from Counselor Prime Yex Thu, who demanded to know how the Federation could repair the failing technology that was crippling their civilization. Neela's answer was simple and devastating. They could not repair it because they had never understood how it worked in the first place. The technology that was failing across the galaxy was not alien technology that had broken down. It was human technology that aliens had been using without realizing it. For the first time in Federation history, someone was going to tell the complete truth about human contributions to galactic civilization. Neela activated the presentation system and began showing data that most of the representatives had never seen before. The official Federation records claimed that all major technological advances had come from alien scientists, but the classified files told a very different story. The manufacturing revolution that had made the Federation wealthy had not been created by Thraxian engineers, as the history books claimed. It had been developed by human industrial designers who found ways to make alien factories 10 times more efficient. The medical breakthroughs that had extended alien lifespans had not come from Valdorian doctors. They had been discovered by human researchers who applied alien knowledge in new ways that alien scientists had never considered. The transportation networks that connected the galaxy had not been designed by Zentari mathematicians. They had been created by human logisticians who solved coordination problems that had baffled alien experts for centuries. Even the military technologies that had made the Federation the dominant power in the galaxy were based on tactical innovations developed by human strategists. But the most shocking revelation was not what humans had invented. It was how they had invented it. Alien scientists approached problems by trying to understand every detail of how complex systems worked. They built elaborate theoretical models and conducted extensive research before attempting to create new technology. This approach produced impressive results, but it was slow and expensive. Humans approached problems completely differently. They did not try to understand everything about complex systems. Instead, they looked for simple patterns that could be applied in many different situations. They built practical solutions that worked reliably even when the theoretical principles behind them were not fully understood. This difference in thinking had made humans incredibly valuable to the Federation, even though most aliens never realized it. When alien scientists created new technologies that were brilliant but impractical, human engineers found ways to make them work in real-world conditions. When alien systems were too complex for normal users to operate, humans redesigned them to be simple and intuitive. The most important example was the Federation's computer networks. Alien computer scientists had developed incredibly powerful processors that could perform trillions of calculations per second. But these processors were so complex that they required teams of specialists to program and maintain them. Most alien organizations could not afford to hire enough computer experts to use the technology effectively. Human programmers had solved this problem by creating software that made complex computers easy to use. They developed programming languages that allowed non-experts to write effective computer programs. They designed user interfaces that made complicated systems accessible to ordinary people. They built operating systems that could manage complex hardware automatically without human intervention. These innovations had transformed the Federation from a collection of technologically advanced, but disconnected, worlds into a unified civilization where information and resources could be shared instantly across vast distances. But the innovations had been so seamlessly integrated into existing alien technology that most people never realized they were using human-designed systems. Federation engineer Prime Colthax, who had always considered human technology to be primitive, was forced to confront the truth about his own assumptions. He had spent his career building impressive but inefficient machines that required constant maintenance and expert operation. Every time he had tried to improve his designs, he had made them more complex and harder to use. Human engineers had taken a completely opposite approach. They had focused on building machines that were simple to operate and difficult to break. When human machines did break down, they usually failed safely and could be repaired quickly by non-specialists. Human technology was not primitive because it was simple. It was advanced because it was reliable. The economic data that economist Vrellon had collected revealed the true scope of human contributions to galactic prosperity. Over the past 2 centuries, human innovations had increased manufacturing efficiency by 3,000%. Agricultural productivity had increased by 800%. Energy generation had become 500% more efficient. Transportation costs had dropped by 90%. These improvements had created unprecedented prosperity throughout Federation space. Worlds that had once struggled to feed their populations were now exporting food to other systems. Planets that had been too poor to afford advanced technology were now centers of industry and innovation. The standard of living for every species in the Federation had improved dramatically. But the improvements had happened so gradually that most aliens had assumed they were the natural result of scientific progress. Federation economists had never studied the correlation between human innovations and economic growth, because they had never recognized that humans were making significant innovations. The official records gave credit for all economic improvements to alien business leaders and government policies. The military implications were even more serious. Defense Secretary Thalmar was forced to admit that Federation military superiority had been built on human tactical innovations that alien commanders had never understood. The coordination systems that allowed Federation fleets to outmaneuver larger enemy forces had been designed by human strategists. The communication protocols that kept Federation military networks secure had been developed by human cryptographers. Most importantly, the logistics systems that kept Federation military forces supplied across vast distances had been created by human organizers who understood how to move resources efficiently. Alien military leaders had focused on building bigger ships and more powerful weapons, but they had never solved the fundamental problem of how to coordinate large military operations across interstellar distances. Human military innovations had not just made the Federation stronger. They had fundamentally changed how wars were fought throughout the galaxy. Before human involvement, military conflicts had been simple battles between opposing fleets. Human strategic thinking had introduced concepts like coordinated multi-front campaigns, real-time intelligence gathering, and adaptive tactical responses to changing battlefield conditions. These innovations had been so successful that enemy forces had been forced to adopt similar strategies to remain competitive. The entire galaxy had been shaped by human military thinking, but most alien commanders assumed that these ideas had developed naturally as military technology became more sophisticated. As Neela presented this information to the shocked Federation Assembly, reports were arriving from the edge of galactic space. Long-range sensors had detected the first signs of human activity in a distant galaxy cluster. The human Exodus fleet had reached its destination and was beginning the process of building a new civilization. The sensor data showed massive construction projects on a scale that dwarfed anything the Federation had ever attempted. Entire star systems were being transformed into industrial centers. Planets were being terraformed at incredible speed using techniques that Federation scientists did not recognize. Most impressive of all, the humans appeared to be building some kind of megastructure around a yellow star that was larger than any space station ever constructed. The implications were clear. Humanity had not just survived their exodus from the galaxy. They had used their freedom from Federation bureaucracy and alien prejudice to accelerate their technological development far beyond anything they had achieved while living under alien rule. In the 2 years since leaving Federation space, humans had apparently made more technological progress than the Federation had made in the past century. This revelation was the final blow to alien confidence in their own superiority. The species that they had dismissed as primitive and unimportant had not only been essential to their civilization, but had been holding back their own. 1 year after humanity had vanished into the darkness between galaxies, the Federation was collapsing. Counselor Prime Yexthu stood before the emergency assembly, looking at representatives from hundreds of worlds who were all demanding answers to the same question. How could the most advanced civilization in the galaxy be falling apart so quickly? Dr. Neela Chen sat in the observation deck above the council chamber, the last human who had chosen to stay behind when her people departed. She had been a junior researcher at the Federation Science Institute, too young and idealistic to believe that the galaxy would really be better off without humans. Now she watched the panic in the chamber below and felt a mixture of sadness and bitter satisfaction. The first speaker was Krextal, Chief Operations Officer of the Asteroid Mining Consortium. His report painted a picture of complete industrial collapse. 70% of the deep space mining rigs that extracted metals and rare elements from asteroids had gone offline. The specialized drilling equipment that could bore through solid rock had broken down without replacement parts. The automated processing systems that turned raw ore into useful materials had shut down one by one. What made the situation worse was that no one understood how the mining equipment actually worked. The alien engineers who had originally designed the rigs had created machines that could extract ore from asteroids, but they were slow, inefficient, and broke down constantly. Human engineers had quietly redesigned every important system over the past 50 years, turning unreliable alien technology into the backbone of galactic industry. The human improvements had been so subtle that most aliens never noticed them. A small change to the drilling algorithm that doubled extraction speed, a new safety system that prevented catastrophic equipment failures, a more efficient ore processing method that reduced waste by 90%. Each improvement had seemed minor by itself, but together they had transformed galactic mining from a barely profitable industry into the foundation of interstellar prosperity. Captain Rexvon delivered the next report, and his news was even worse. The transportation networks that moved goods between stars were in complete chaos. The traffic management systems that had safely coordinated millions of ships every day were failing across the galaxy. 3 major shipping disasters had occurred in the past month, with hundreds of ships destroyed and thousands of crew members killed. The problem was that alien traffic control systems had never been designed to handle the volume of shipping that galactic civilization now required. The original alien systems could manage a few dozen ships at a time, but modern space lanes carried thousands of vessels simultaneously. Human mathematicians had developed new coordination algorithms that could safely manage this enormous traffic volume. But these algorithms were based on mathematical principles that no alien scientist understood. Without the human traffic control systems, space lanes were becoming death traps. Ships were colliding because they could not coordinate their movements. Cargo vessels were getting lost because the navigation computers could not calculate safe routes through crowded shipping lanes. The entire galactic economy was grinding to a halt because goods could not be transported safely between worlds. Dr. Phylax, head of the Federation Medical Council, delivered a report that chilled every representative in the chamber. Hospital systems across the galaxy were experiencing cascading failures that were putting millions of lives at risk. Surgical robots that had performed flawless operations for decades were making mistakes that killed patients. Diagnostic equipment was providing false readings that led to incorrect treatments. Life support systems were becoming unreliable, failing without warning and leaving patients to die. The medical crisis was particularly horrifying because it revealed how completely galactic medicine depended on human innovation. Alien medical technology had always been focused on treating diseases that affected alien biology. When humans joined the Federation, alien doctors had assumed that human medicine was too primitive to be useful for treating alien patients. But human medical researchers had quietly revolutionized galactic healthcare by focusing on the universal principles of biology that applied to all living creatures. They had developed diagnostic techniques that could detect diseases in any species. They had created surgical procedures that worked equally well on alien and human patients. They had designed life support systems that could keep any kind of creature alive during medical emergencies. More importantly, humans had built reliability and safety into medical equipment that had originally been dangerous and unpredictable. Alien surgical robots had been powerful but clumsy, capable of performing complex operations but prone to making fatal errors. Human engineers had added safety systems that prevented these errors without reducing the robot's capabilities. Alien diagnostic equipment had been accurate, but fragile, capable of detecting diseases but easily damaged by normal use. Human technicians had redesigned these machines to be both accurate and durable, creating medical tools that could work reliably for years without maintenance. Defense Secretary Thalmar delivered the most terrifying report of all. The Federation military, once the most powerful force in the galaxy, was becoming deaf and blind. Communication networks that connected military bases across hundreds of star systems were failing. Warships were losing contact with their commanding officers. Defense satellites were going offline without explanation. The military communications crisis was particularly serious because it made the Federation vulnerable to attack from hostile alien species. The Krellian Empire and the Vorthan Confederacy had been enemies of the Federation for centuries, but they had never dared to attack because Federation military coordination was too effective. Federation fleets could respond to threats faster than any enemy could mount an attack, but Federation military coordination depended entirely on communication networks that used encryption methods developed by human cryptographers. These encryption systems were so sophisticated that enemy forces had never been able to break them, even with the most advanced alien computer technology. The systems were also so reliable that Federation commanders had never needed backup communication methods. Now the encryption systems were failing because the human technicians who maintained them were gone. Enemy intelligence services were already probing Federation defenses, testing for weaknesses that had never existed before. Several border skirmishes had occurred in the past month, with Federation forces suffering embarrassing defeats because they could not coordinate their responses to enemy attacks. The agricultural crisis was equally devastating, but less visible. Food production across the galaxy was dropping rapidly as automated farming systems failed. The Federation had fed billions of people using advanced agricultural technology that could grow massive amounts of food on planets with hostile environments. These farming systems had originally been designed by alien scientists, but they had been completely transformed by human agricultural engineers. Alien farming technology had been designed to work on planets with perfect conditions. Ideal soil, perfect weather, and no pests or diseases. But most planets in the galaxy did not have perfect conditions. Human agricultural engineers had developed techniques for growing food on desert planets, ice worlds, and toxic environments that would normally be uninhabitable. They had created new crop varieties that could survive in extreme conditions. They had designed irrigation systems that could bring water to the driest planets. They had developed pest control methods that protected crops without damaging the environment. Most importantly, they had automated all of these systems so that food production could continue without constant human supervision. But the automation systems were failing now that their human creators were gone. Crops were dying because the irrigation systems could not adapt to changing weather conditions. Pests were destroying harvests because the pest control systems were not working properly. Entire planets were facing starvation because their food production systems had become unreliable. The economic data that economist Vrelon presented to the Council was staggering. The galactic economy was shrinking rapidly as one industry after another collapsed. Manufacturing output had dropped by 60%. Interstellar trade had declined by 80%. Unemployment was rising on every Federation world as businesses shut down because they could no longer obtain the goods and services they needed to operate. What made the economic crisis particularly serious was that it was accelerating. As each industry collapsed, it caused problems for other industries that depended on it. The failure of mining operations meant that manufacturers could not get the raw materials they needed. The breakdown of transportation networks meant that even functioning factories could not deliver their products to customers. The Federation had always prided itself on having the most robust and resilient economy in the galaxy, but that economy had been built on a foundation of human innovation that no one had recognized or understood. Humans had identified the weak points in every economic system and developed solutions that prevented small problems from becoming major crises. They had created redundant systems that kept important industries running even when some components failed. They had developed economic models that predicted 6 months had passed since the last human ship had disappeared into the darkness between stars. Trade Commissioner Veltar from the Zentari Empire stood in what used to be New York City, looking at the tall buildings that reached toward the sky. Everything looked perfect from the outside, but something was terribly wrong. Veltar had come to Earth to begin the process of turning it into a vacation planet for wealthy aliens. The Federation had promised him that all the human infrastructure would be ready to use. Beautiful cities, working factories, and advanced transportation systems were supposed to make Earth the most desirable destination in the galaxy. Instead, he found buildings that looked impressive but did not work. The elevators in the tallest building had stopped working 3 days after the humans left. The power grid that supplied electricity to the entire city had shut down a week later. The traffic control system that managed thousands of flying cars had crashed completely, leaving vehicles scattered across landing pads with no way to coordinate their movements. Chief Engineer Kixen from the Hegemony's Technical Division was having an even worse time. He had been sent to examine a human manufacturing plant that was supposed to start producing luxury goods for alien customers. What he found made no sense at all. The factory had all the right machines in all the right places, but none of them would turn on. Kixen was considered one of the smartest engineers in the galaxy. He had designed space stations that housed millions of people and built starships that could travel between galaxies. But the human factory defeated him completely. Every machine was connected to every other machine in ways that seemed impossible. The control systems were written in computer languages he had never seen before. The maintenance procedures required tools that did not exist anywhere in Federation space. The problems were not limited to Earth. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy about strange equipment failures. A luxury passenger ship called the Golden Star had lost its navigation system somewhere near the Thraxian homeworld. The ship was equipped with the most advanced alien navigation technology available, but it also had a small human-made computer that helped calculate the safest routes through dangerous areas of space. When the human computer stopped working, the ship's alien navigation system became almost useless. It could still figure out where the ship was and where it needed to go, but it could not plan safe routes around asteroids, space storms, or hostile territory. The Golden Star had to call for help from Federation military ships just to make it safely to the nearest space station. Dr. Phylax, the head of medical services at Central Federation Hospital, was dealing with an even more serious crisis. His hospital had the most advanced medical equipment in the galaxy, but half of it was no longer working properly. Surgical robots that had performed perfect operations for decades were now making small but dangerous mistakes. Diagnostic machines that could detect any disease were giving incorrect results. The problem was that all of this equipment had been improved over the years by human engineers. Aliens had invented the basic machines, but humans had added the small details that made them work reliably. Safety systems that prevented surgical robots from cutting in the wrong places were designed by humans. Error-checking programs that made sure diagnostic machines gave accurate results were written by human programmers. None of the alien doctors had realized how much they depended on these human improvements. They had simply accepted that their equipment worked better than it used to, and never questioned why. Now that the human-designed safety systems were failing, they were discovering that their supposedly advanced medical technology was actually quite primitive, without human help. Fleet Admiral Zephyros was getting reports from military commanders across Federation space. Ships were losing communication with their home bases. Weapon systems were misfiring. Defense satellites were going offline without explanation. At first, he thought enemy forces were launching some kind of coordinated attack against Federation military assets. But Lieutenant Commander Silhan brought him a detailed analysis that revealed the truth. Every system that was failing had one thing in common. It contained components that had been designed or improved by human engineers. The Federation military had been using human technology for so long that no one remembered which systems were originally alien and which ones had been enhanced by human innovation. The communication networks that connected Federation military bases across the galaxy used encryption methods invented by human mathematicians. The targeting computers that helped Federation weapons hit their targets used calculation methods developed by human scientists. The power systems that kept Federation warships running efficiently used energy management techniques discovered by human researchers. All of these improvements had been added gradually over many years. Each one had seemed like a small change that made existing alien technology work a little better. But when added together, they formed the invisible foundation that supported the entire Federation military machine. Without them, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was becoming weak and disorganized. Captain Rex Vaughn, who managed cargo transportation for the Federation Logistics Corps, was facing a complete breakdown of the interstellar shipping system. Thousands of cargo ships moved goods between planets every day, following routes that had been carefully planned to avoid collisions and minimize travel time. This complex system was controlled by traffic management computers that had been originally designed by alien engineers but improved many times by human programmers. The human improvements had made the system incredibly efficient. Ships could carry more cargo in less time while using less fuel. Space accidents had become extremely rare because the human-designed safety protocols prevented ships from getting too close to each other. The entire galactic economy depended on this transportation network working perfectly, but now the system was falling apart. Ships were getting lost because the navigation computers could not calculate the most efficient routes. Cargo was being damaged because the loading procedures designed by human engineers were too complicated for alien workers to follow correctly. Most seriously, there had been 3 major collisions in the past month because the safety systems that prevented accidents were no longer working. The worst part was that no one knew how to fix any of these problems. The humans had always maintained their own technology, and they had never shared their technical knowledge with alien engineers. Federation scientists had assumed that human technology was too simple to be worth studying. They had been completely wrong. Human technology was not simple because it was primitive. It was simple because it was brilliant. Humans had a special talent for taking complicated problems and finding elegant solutions that worked reliably for long periods of time. They built systems that could repair themselves when possible, and fail safely when repair was not possible. Alien technology, in comparison, was complicated because alien engineers tried to solve every problem by adding more features and more controls. Their machines were impressive to look at, but they required constant maintenance by teams of specialists. When something went wrong with alien technology, it usually failed catastrophically and dangerously. The Federation had gotten the best of both worlds by combining alien innovation with human reliability. Aliens would invent new technologies, and humans would figure out how to make them work properly in real-world conditions. This partnership had created the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen, but the partnership had never been acknowledged officially. Federation records gave aliens credit for all technological advances, while human contributions were either ignored or classified as military secrets. Most aliens genuinely believed that humans had contributed nothing important to galactic civilization. Now they were learning the truth the hard way. Every day brought new reports of system failures, equipment breakdowns, and technological disasters. The invisible human foundation that had supported galactic civilization for 2 centuries was crumbling, and no one knew how to rebuild it. Captain Jake Martinez stood at the window of his ship and watched Earth get smaller and smaller. The blue planet that had been home to humans for millions of years was now just a tiny dot in the darkness of space. Behind him, 50,000 human ships were flying away from Earth forever. Each ship carried thousands of people who would never see their home planet again. Jake felt sad but also angry. The aliens in the Galactic Federation had treated humans badly for so many years. They said humans were not smart enough to be real members of the Federation. They gave humans the worst jobs and made them live in the poorest parts of space stations. When humans tried to share their ideas, the aliens just laughed and said human technology was too simple and stupid. But now the humans were leaving, and they were taking everything with them. Admiral Lisa Torres had planned this day for 5 years. She was the smartest military leader humans had ever produced, and she had made sure that when humans left, they would leave nothing useful behind. Every computer, every machine, every piece of technology that humans had built was either on the ships or destroyed completely. Lisa walked onto Jake's bridge and looked at the reports coming in from other ships. The evacuation was going perfectly. Every human factory on Earth had been taken apart piece by piece. Every laboratory had been emptied. Every database had been wiped clean. The aliens thought they were getting a beautiful planet full of useful buildings and machines. but they were actually getting empty shells that would be useless without human knowledge. Dr. Kevin Blake was on another ship, watching his life's work disappear behind them. He had spent 40 years developing new technologies that made life better for everyone in the galaxy. His inventions were in every alien home, every alien hospital, and every alien factory. But the aliens had never bothered to learn how these inventions actually worked. They just used them and assumed they would always work perfectly. Kevin smiled as he thought about what would happen when his machines started breaking down. Without humans to fix them, the aliens would discover that their wonderful technology was not so wonderful after all. Kevin had built small programs into every machine he created. These programs would make the machines stop working after a certain amount of time without proper maintenance. The aliens did not know about these programs because they had never tried to understand how human technology really worked. On the flagship, Admiral Torres was talking to her senior officers. Commander Ryan Walsh was worried about leaving Earth to the aliens. He thought humans should fight for their home planet instead of running away. But Torres explained that this was not running away. This was the smartest move humans had ever made. For 200 years, humans had been the backbone of galactic civilization without anyone realizing it. While aliens focused on big, complicated solutions to simple problems, humans always found simple solutions to complicated problems. When alien computers were too slow, humans made them faster. When alien factories were too wasteful, humans made them efficient. When alien medical equipment was too dangerous, humans made it safe. But the aliens never gave humans credit for these improvements. They just took the improved technology and pretended they had made it themselves. The Federation's official records said that all major technological advances came from alien scientists. Human contributions were either ignored or classified as military secrets so no one would know about them. Now the truth would come out. Every time an alien machine broke down, they would remember that a human had designed the parts that made it work. Every time an alien factory stopped producing goods, they would realize that human efficiency improvements had been keeping it running. Every time an alien hospital could not save a patient, they would understand that human medical devices had been doing most of the real work. Captain Sarah Phillips was in charge of the last transport ship to leave Earth. She had volunteered for this dangerous job because someone needed to make sure every human got safely to the evacuation ships. As her ship lifted off from New York City, she looked down at the empty streets and abandoned buildings. The city looked normal from the outside, but Sarah knew it was just an empty shell now. Every traffic light would stop working within a week because the control computers were designed by humans and maintained by human technicians. Every elevator would break down because the safety systems were too complicated for alien engineers to fix. Every power plant would shut down because the efficiency programs that kept them running were written in human, computer languages that no alien had ever bothered to learn. The Federation had always said that human technology was primitive compared to alien science. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. Human technology was not primitive. It was elegant. While aliens built machines that needed teams of specialists to operate, humans built machines that anyone could use. While aliens created technology that broke down constantly, humans created technology that fixed itself. But the most important thing humans had built was not any machine or computer program. It was a way of thinking. Humans looked at problems differently than aliens did. When aliens saw something that was difficult, they made it more complicated. When humans saw something that was difficult, they found a way to make it simple. This difference in thinking had made humans incredibly valuable to the Federation, even though the aliens did not realize it. Every major space station in the galaxy worked because humans had redesigned its systems to be more efficient. Every interstellar trade route was profitable because humans had figured out how to reduce transportation costs. Every alien military victory in the past century had been won using weapons that humans had secretly improved. As the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Jake Martinez thought about the new galaxy they were flying toward. It was completely empty of intelligent life, which meant humans would be free to build whatever kind of civilization they wanted. There would be no aliens to tell them they were too stupid or too primitive. There would be no Federation to steal their ideas and give credit to someone else. The journey to their new home would take 2 years, but Jake was not worried. The human fleet was completely self-sufficient. Every ship could manufacture whatever it needed using resources from asteroids and empty planets along the way. The aliens had always wondered how humans could build things so quickly and cheaply, but they had never bothered to ask. Now they would never get the chance to learn the secrets of human engineering. Behind them, the galaxy was already starting to change. Federation officials were celebrating the departure of the humans, not knowing that they had just lost the invisible foundation that held their civilization together.